Hello, Thomas fans, and welcome once again. So, today I'll be talking about all 26 episodes of Season 2 and ranking them from worst to best. Now, as ever, this video is my opinion and my opinion only, so if your list is different to mine, good for you. Originally aired in 1986, these episodes were once again based on the books by Wilbert Awdry, but on this occasion, a couple of Christopher Awdry's stories were included as well. Of course, as a lot of people know, the story, The Missing Coat, was originally going to be an episode, but for some fairly annoying reasons, Brittlecroft decided not to produce it. If this episode had been made, I think it would be quite up there in this list, because I am rather fond of the original Railway series story. But anyway, let's get started with my least favourite episode. Number 26. Better Late Than Never. Originally based on Christopher's story, which was published the exact same year, this episode I can only describe as boring. This episode was on the Chases, Races and Runaways video that I got in 2004, and I can't for the life of me work out why it was on there. It's not exciting, it's not funny, it's just Thomas once again complaining about engines being late, and for some reason he takes it out on Bertie, one of his closest friends. To be honest, if they just had to adapt 3 of the stories from more about Thomas the Tank Engine, I would have much preferred if they made Drip Tank an episode, and end Thomas, Percy and Nicole on a cliffhanger. You can watch Better Late Than Never by all means, but I don't think you'll miss anything if you don't. Number 25. The Deputation. This episode rather confused me as a child, but as a young adult it looks quite dull. Basically, the engines are worried that Donald Douglas will be sent away, so they tell the Fat Controller not to. I don't know why Percy had to ask Edward for advice. I would have thought that they would be smart enough to come up with that on their own, but overall, it was good that the Fat Controller let Donald and Douglas stay, because these two characters are great. Once again, it's nice to see Sodor covered by snow, even though the previous episodes didn't look like it was in the middle of winter. But the story and dialogue doesn't put it that high on this list. Number 24. Thomas and the Missing Christmas Tree. Considering we had 2 episodes in Series 1 about someone getting trapped in the snow, it was a bit of a letdown that we had yet another for the final episode of this series. Of course, when Thomas does get trapped by the snowdrift, it does look quite dramatic. But after that, it's exactly like Thomas's Christmas party. When Thomas is rescued, they manage to get back to the Christmas party in time, and the only difference is that it's at Knapford Station. So yeah, not a good way to finish this series. Number 23. Thomas and Trevor. Once again based on a Christopher story, this episode is just far too similar to Trevor's first episode. Only Thomas has a bigger part and it's at a different place. I'll say a bit more about Trevor's character later, but I think this episode should have expanded a bit more on Trevor's friendship with Thomas, other than just using similar dialogue to when Thomas first meets Terence. So yeah, a dull episode which is far too similar to another fairly dull episode. Number 22. Thomas, Percy and Nicole. Interestingly, this is the first episode that actually talked about Thomas and Percy as best friends. So, what can you do that kicks off the cutest friendship in television history? You make an episode where Thomas makes it all about himself and is an arsehole to Percy just because he said he liked his green paint. What a role model. I do like the scenes where the coal lands on Thomas and Percy has his crash, but I just don't like Thomas's attitude and behaviour in this, and this line of dialogue from Percy I find is painfully true.
Fancy a really useful blue engine like Thomas becoming a disgrace to the Fat Controller's railway.
Number 21. Saved from Scrap. Okay, now I'll talk a bit more about Trevor's character. And I'm just going to say it, I don't really like him that much. Why? Because his episodes are just meh. A traction engine is an incredibly rare thing to see these days, so I think they should have emphasised more on what Trevor is and does, rather than what he likes, because I think him liking children is really his only personality trait. As for this episode, it's great to see Wise Old Edward once again help out, and we get some good human interaction between Jem, Cole and the Vicar, something that I think Thomas and friends should expand on more. But in the end, because Trevor is a relatively uninteresting character, I'm not over the moon when he is saved. Number 20. Woolly Bear. I think I could name more episodes where Thomas and Percy don't get along than episodes where they do get along. Thomas is once again rude to Percy, calling him a green caterpillar with red stripes just because he was late. Why is being late such a bad thing, Thomas? It's not like he's murdered anyone or anything. But anyway, it's really funny to see Percy covered in the tar and hay, and despite Thomas's attitude, I do quite like this funny line.
Look what's crawled out of the hay.
I am the one, the way your son don't need a gun to get respect up on the street.
But anyway, this is once again an episode where Thomas's rudeness and arrogance ruins the chances of this being higher on the list. Number 19, Dirty Work. I think this episode might have the saddest ending ever, but I'm not a huge fan of it. It's fairly simple in the end in my opinion. Diesel makes up lies about Duck, which leads to him getting kicked out of Tipper's sheds. It's fairly dramatic in places and shows how much of a villain Diesel is, but I feel there are scenes that take up too much of the episode. We get to hear the Pop Goes the Diesel song a second time. We get a fairly long scene of the truck laughing at the jokes Diesel told them, and then a really long scene when Duck returns to the shed. This makes the confrontation between Duck and the big engines too short for me, and they built it up very well. So an episode that expands too much on the unimportant bits, which greatly affects the very dramatic scenes. Number 18, Wrong Road. I want to rank this one higher, I really do, but I just don't find it as exciting as the ones we'll see later. We get that recurring storyline I like where Gordon says he knows it all, but not long after he gets embarrassed when something goes wrong. The scene with the lady in the green hat is extremely unusual and amusing at the same time. And I like how something as small as that ultimately decides this story. When Gordon is terrified by the twins, you can't help but laugh at the fact that Gordon is being outdone by two cheeky little engines. A funny and clever episode, but unfortunately not that exciting. Number 17, Daisy. Now, I do really like Daisy's character and her personality, but I think her first episode is fairly basic. The thing about Series 2 is we get to see more adventures with the characters that were introduced and established in Series 1, which I find more interesting. But this episode is about establishing Daisy's character, and that's it really. It's a good introductory episode, but there are much better episodes in this series. Number 16, Percy and Harold. This episode is really exciting and does establish Harold's character very well, but I find it just too similar to Thomas and Bertie. Percy meets a new character and this character is rather boastful, just like with Thomas and Percy. Then these two have a race, just like Thomas and Bertie. Then Percy wins the race, proving Harold wrong, just like Thomas and Bertie. So you see what I mean? This race might be a bit more exciting than the other, but it's still annoying to see a plot we've already seen in Series 1. Number 15, Percy and the Signal. This was the second episode that had Percy as the main character, and this time they showed his cheeky side, which is really fun to watch. However, I much prefer the second half where Gordon and James fool Percy and tell him about backing signals. When Percy realises he has been fooled, his reaction is very funny. Other than that, the episode is average. There's not a huge amount going on compared to other stories, but it's still funny and charming. Number 14, Breakfast. I am a very big fan of Donald and Douglas, but their first episode was just okay. We are also briefly introduced to the spiteful brakeman who works with the trucks, and I thought he was a pretty good villain for just this one episode, and I almost feel disappointed when Douglas causes him to fall apart. Both crashes with Donald and Douglas are pretty dramatic, and we do get to know them quite well, but I would have much preferred to have had the missing coach as their first episode. Who cares if it confuses children, Brett? Number 13, Bertie's Chase. The second ever episode I remember watching as a baby. This time we get to see Bertie get a chance of being a primary character, and we are introduced to him a bit better than in Thomas and Bertie. When Bertie is desperately trying to catch Edward, it's got a lot of fast-paced action, and you feel sorry for him whenever he keeps failing to reach Edward. Bertie's Chase is just a nice, fun episode that doesn't connect to any of the other stories, but it doesn't have to. Number 12, The Runaway. Really an episode of two halves. We get this rather nice scene where Duck takes Annie and Clarabelle while Thomas is ill. It doesn't really affect the scenes later, but it's still nice to get to know Duck's calm, hard-working attitude. The second half, when Thomas's handbrake fails and he runs away on his own, is rather exciting and intense. I think it's Christopher's only good story from this series, no offense to the man, because it's very realistic. Although I said I did like Duck's scene, I think it would have been better to take that bit out and make the runaway scene slightly longer. That probably would have improved the episode for me. Number 11, Thomas Comes to Breakfast. I'm probably going to get the most amount of complaints for this one, but hear me out. The crash into the house is very cool, the bit where Thomas gets the raw impression from his driver is quite interesting, but I just don't like the choices some of the characters make in this one. The Fat Controller blamed Thomas even though it was the cleaner that messed up the controls. The station master's wife is angry with Thomas for messing up their breakfast and not partly destroying their house, which could collapse at any moment. Also, why did they get Dawn and Douglas to pull Thomas out? Don't they sleep at timber sheds a fair distance away from the branch line? Yeah, the crash and storyline is pretty good, but there are some factors that I don't really like about this one. Number 10. The Diseasal. A great way to introduce 3 of my favourite characters, Bill, Ben, and Boko. By the end of this episode, we know how cheeky and troublesome Bill and Ben are, and we know how wise and smart Boko is. The scene where Bill and Ben make Boko dizzy is very funny. Other than that, not a huge amount to say about this one, just a nice, fun episode that introduces these 3 characters very well. Number 9. Pop Goes the Diesel. This one is a big fan favourite for a lot of people. We meet Diesel, who, as I said in my top 10 characters, is a fantastic villain for the series, and his first episode is very good. He's not up to no good, he's just really boastful and mysterious, and he and Duck share a great rivalry. I don't really find the scene where Diesel tries and fails to pull the old trucks as funny as your average fan. Personally, I think I prefer it in the world's strongest engine. Other than that, this episode is very good. It's great to see Duck's really smart personality again, and the writers are really successful at making us wonder what this Diesel character is like and how much trouble he wants to cause. Number 8. Percy's Predicament. A rather simple plot to this one. Percy takes some trucks for Toby and then has a big crash. I think the crash and Runaway scene is the best part of this episode. To see that brake van fall to pieces is quite spectacular. But I think the one thing that lets this episode down is I think there's too much talking and not enough action. It's good that the Fat Controller lets Daisy stay on the railway, but for that scene after the crash, my mind does tend to wander. Number 7. Duck Takes Charge. Not a huge amount to say about this one, other than it was a fantastic way for us to meet one of my favourite characters. After watching this episode, we know how unique a new character Duck is, and that he is smart enough to outdo the 3 bigger engines in a very clever way. Number 6. Edward's Exploit. Without a doubt, one of Edward's best ever episodes. We do get a lot of episodes where Edward is showing his wise attitude and his good strength, but not a huge amount on his bravery. That was until this one. It's great to see Edward desperately try and succeed in getting the passengers home, despite having a broken crank pin. This episode showed that Edward is more than just a character that gives advice. He can get up to big adventures like his friends do, and it is such a shame that the writers won't let him do it in the current series. Number 5. Cows. Quite an old favourite of mine. As I said before, I like the episodes where Gordon or all the big engines are embarrassed after they say they know it all, and Cows is another one of those. Other than that, this is a fairly simple episode, but that I still enjoy every single time. Number 4. Percy Takes the Plunge. Despite it being very similar to Down the Mine, no seriously, they even mentioned that episode, I love this one. Percy has some of the best crashes and accidents, and this is one of them. The build up to it is great, and the scene where they rescue Percy is quite cool as well. A nice episode with a very dramatic incident, and also some very nice locations. Number 3. Ghost Train. I am quite glad I saw this one later on in my childhood, because I probably would have been terrified. Every kids' TV show tends to make one or a couple of episodes based around a spooky setting that you can show around Halloween. But Ghost Train is successful in actually scaring you. The darkness, the mist, the echoes, everything just sends shivers down your spine. There is only one thing I hate about this episode, and it's Thomas's reaction to finding out Percy has an accident.
Percy's had an accident, cried Toby. Poor engine, said Thomas. Botheration. That means I'll be late.
Wait, am I hearing things, or did Thomas just say he's more worried about being late than his best friend? What an arsehole! Let's hope he's better in Series 3. But anyway, this episode is fantastic. The visuals are incredible, the story isn't too shabby, and I imagine a few particularly young viewers would be spooked by this. Number 2. A Close Shave. So Wallace and Gromit are now working as window cleaners, but there's someone unknown that is killing loads of sheep. Oh, you mean the Thomas episode. Right, sorry, let's start again. I think this episode has one of the best chase sequences in all of Thomas, where Duck is trying to stop the runaway trucks. We get the fantastic Runaway theme, which adds intensity every time we hear it. The action is really fast paced, and Duck's crash into the barbershop is very dramatic. After this, we get a very nice ending where Duck is allowed back at the shed and Diesel is sent away. Without a doubt, Duck's best episode in the series. At number 1, Old Iron. My parents had read me the Old Iron story in the book quite a few times, and for a while I didn't actually know there was an episode about it in the TV series, until I was given the Christmas Collection VHS by a friend. I don't know why it was on a Christmas video, but I was looking forward to seeing it for the first time. And boy did it exceed my expectations. We do get a nice bit of human interaction between the fireman and the signalman, which I'll say again I would like to see more of. The build up to the Runaway scene is great, and as for the Runaway scene itself, it blew me away. As Edward uses all his energy to catch James, it is all incredibly exciting. The shots of the rope trying to land on James's buffer are some very cool close-ups, and of course, we get the Runaway theme to top it all off. I also like how it slows down when Edward finally stops James. And to finish this amazing episode off, we are pleased when Edward is told he is going to be repaired as a reward. It doesn't have the same ending as the book, but this episode was still amazing, exciting, and well worth the wait. So what's my opinion on Series 2? Well, it is better than Series 1, but still not the best of all time. It's great to see more adventures with the main characters we already know enough about. Overall, I would rank this one joint third with the series I will be talking about next week, Series 3. So what do you guys think? Is your list different to mine, and what's your opinion on Series 2? Let me know down in the comments. As always, thanks for watching, and until next time, sparkle, sparkle, sparkle,